and ask Mr. Covington
Yes,
to lead us in the pledge.
as you wish. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Echo gets me.
There's no comma.
Thank you. That brings us to agenda item 3, presentations. Dr. Wilson, who did you want to talk?
Mr. President, members of the governing board, we're fortunate tonight to have Joey from McCarthy give us an update on the Power campus expansion. As a reminder, we're rounding the corner on finishing the aviation building and beginning the process on the vet tech building, and Joey's going to kind of walk us through what's happened since the last time he was here.
All right. Well, Mr. President, members of the board, thank you for having me. I'll get the... So we broke ground on the vet and engineering building, and we were thinking about last week, about midweek, we were thinking, instead of having backup power, maybe we should be building an ark for these animals to get off of this campus, because as much rain as we got. But here's a little bit look of kind of Lake EVIT. Uh-oh. There we go.
Took everything away.
So we got quite a bit of rain on site, but we were able to pump it out and keep trucking. So progress is going well. This is the aviation building. You can see the metal framing going on and metal wall panels. There's a lot of work happening right now. This is inside the hangar bay. This is the airplane hangar bay. Getting ready to pour slab on grade. We have the roof is on. It's in the process of being dried in. Be dried in here in the next couple days, and then we can go ahead and pour that slab. And that way, just in case we get a surprise thunderstorm, our concrete will be fine. But we've got the framing done on the first, second, and third floors. We're moving through framing and just waiting on the roofs to dry in so that we can start hanging drywall. We've got the rough in going full scale into the walls with the electrical and the plumbing. You can see the green piping is the waste lines and the vents for the plumbing. This is the vet engineering buildings. You can see the 2 footprints there. We've got the foundations down. We were able to dodge the raindrops and pump the footers out 3 or 4 times and be able to get concrete in them. So we got the concrete down. We've got the stems up, and we're working on some underground right now. And then we'll continue on up with the masonry walls. So we're in good shape. It's dried out really well. We had to dig some footings a little deeper to get some dry dirt, but we got it and we were able to keep moving. So. The central plant, the upgrades are just about complete. We've got the new cooling towers in and done. This is the new yard just off of the central plant that we built over the summer. You can see the new roll-up door and man gate going into the central plant so that the facilities there have a place to store materials and have access to their equipment where currently it was scattered throughout the campus. So this will be a nice space for them. There's the new chiller in place. Piping is getting completed. It'll come online here within the next 2 weeks. And we'll have that running, and then we'll flip the system to the new chiller and replace the old chiller that's been problematic out there. This is some of the summer work that went on. If you remember, there were a couple islands there. We demoed out the islands. We extended the larger chill water lines from the central plant coming into the site, and we did some upgrades while there. There was a little bit of a sidewalk ramp that we tore out and replaced while we were in there, kind of dressed up the front entrance. And there's what it looks like now. We got everything back, put all new pavers down, painted the red curbing, and the islands are no more, so we don't have to worry about buses running into the islands as they make the turn now. This is another thing we did over the summer. We turned one of the regular classrooms into a cosmetology classroom. So we went in, added these 2 hair sinks, added all the hair stations, upgraded the electrical, put electrical at each station, and removed the carpet and polished the floors. So that was the second floor remodel that we did over the summer, or part of it. We were fortunate enough this last week to have the construction kids out. They took a tour, took a field trip of the project, so we had them out. This was them, we were going over some things over at the vet engineering building. This is in the aviation building. We took them through, showed them the framing, showed them some of the things that are going on. We got great questions from the kids. They were very inquisitive, and it was a great couple of tours. We had the morning class, you can see on the left there, and then the afternoon class. So we had both, all of the construction kids come through that day. So it was great to see them out and to hear their questions, and they were pretty excited about the spaces. They thought the buildings looked pretty cool. That's it. Is there any questions? Or?
Yeah, I do. Where'd you put all the water? In the new retention center?
Some of it went in the new retention. Yeah, we filtered it into the new retention, and some of it we pumped out to other areas, kind of spread it out so it could dry quicker. We brought in some equipment, kind of spread the water, so we didn't want to delay any days with the downpours.
So a couple questions from my perspective. So just checking my comprehension, we're still on target to move into the aviation building second semester.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. So the rain's put a little bit of a damper on us, but we've been able to manage it, and I think we're a few days behind, but we're confident we can make that up and still make that move-in date for the second semester to start in that building.
And then when we get out of the building that we're currently in aviation and move over, then are we able to begin some of the work that needs to get done in that I think it's probably going to be the cosmetology, to be able to finish some of that cosmetology work,
Yep.
second semester?
Absolutely. So January, once they move into the aviation building, January, we plan on going into that building and remodeling, doing the full cosmetology build out.
That's great. That's great. So just as a reminder, we never did a groundbreaking ceremony on this because everything got a little bit, so we're going to have to do a building dedication at some point in time in January. So just begin thinking of what that's going to look like so that we can finally get you out there and you guys can be in the space that you approve. So thank you very much. I don't know if there's any other questions for Joey?
Any other questions?
I have one. In simple terms, well, I don't want you to put you on the spot, but in simple terms that I can understand, what exactly does a chiller do?
So so houses, for instance, have an air conditioning system or a heat pump, and so all the cold air comes through that electrical system. With what you have here at EVIT, you have a central plant, so you just have air handlers that just blow air in the ceilings, and what the chillers do is it runs cold water over the fins of those air handlers, so that it blows out cold air. So instead of having electrical and it's Freon based, you have chilled water that's running through your system.
Just like it says.
Just like it says. Yep, they're big pipes, and that's ice cold water. I believe they run right around between 30 and 31 to 32 degrees.
It's low.
Yep.
Wow.
So I had that same question, Mr. Watkins, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joey. Part of what I thought, it was almost like a swamp cooler, right? And I was corrected because the water stays in the pipe, and so the air's just blowed over. Yeah, the air's just blowed over the cold pipe, and that's what's pumped in. And so I said, well, is that a pretty common practice? I mean, it just seems kind of. And my understanding is that for facilities that are the size of ours, that is a common practice to have in terms of how we cool.
Yeah, for larger facilities, a central plant is the way to go. They're more efficient than your standard air conditioner like you have on your house, especially when you're heating and cooling a lot of buildings with a lot of space.
It's more economical too, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Yeah, it's a little bit more front-end investment, but in the long term, it's a better payoff.
In your, where are you going to pour the concrete inside the one building? It was wet. The one building, the floor was kind of wet. Did that leak from the roof, or did that just come in through the side?
Yeah, so it leaked through the roof. So we got it decked just in time for the rain to come down. But unfortunately, we have the drain bodies, and they weren't piped yet, and so the rain came through where the drain bodies go. So we mucked out quite a bit of mud out of that hangar before we put the ABC in that you saw there. So we got it down to dry dirt and then put the ABC in. But the ABC, if it looked a little wet, we have to dampen that as we compact it, so it gets full compaction.
If we're gonna do this in January, make sure it's not a rainy day, please.
Yeah, believe me, I know.
Well, we do have a big airplane hangar to hang out in if it is rainy. So.
We can do it in the hangar.
Very good.
Well, I don't know how you guys.
Yes.
Do we have storage of chill water so we can make that in off-peak times, or?
So there is no storage right now with the central plant. And most of the newer plants don't run the storage because it's so much upkeep. They find that the tanks leak and they rust out over time, and they're hard to insulate in Arizona, obviously, to keep that water cool enough to be effective. So a lot of the newer plants don't run storage, so I don't know if that's...
So are you actually running water or a thermal fluid in those?
Yeah, so it's actual water, it's treated water. So there's a chemical in it. We all know water freezes at 32 degrees. But if it's moving, it won't freeze. And then they have a chemical in there that helps it drop even lower in temperature without freezing.
Not potable water.
Don't
To
drink it.
confirm, it's not potable
But we
water.
did confirm that the
Or
chemicals they
potable
put in
water.
are biodegradable. So it can go on the ground and we don't have a hazmat situation, but you still wouldn't want to drink it.
Well, very good. Thank you very much, Joe. I appreciate it.
Thanks for
Nice
having
job.
me.
Okay. You may leave now.
Thank you, very impressive. That brings up agenda item 4A is approval of a special board meeting, July 12. I thought we approved that, but apparently not. Do I have a motion?
I'll move, we approve the minutes of the special board meeting held on July 12.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Do we have any discussion? Hearing
No,
none.
I thought we had approved it last meeting also.
Yeah, I swear, I remember abstaining because I wasn't at that.
20th?
But nevertheless, Ms. Boggs, will you call for the vote?
Yes. Lane,
Aye.
Hart,
Aye.
Covington,
Abstain?
Fleedham,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye, Watkins,
Abstain?
Johnson,
Johnson?
yes, Hobson. Aye. Okay, motion carries.
Motion carried. That brings up B, approval of the regular board meetings, August 9. Do I have a motion?
Also move, Covington?
Hart will second.
Do we have any discussion? Ms. Boggs, will you call for the vote?
Lane,
Aye.
Hart,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Fleedham,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye, Watkins,
Aye.
Johnson,
Abstain?
Hobson.
Aye.
Motion carried. That brings up agenda item 6, consent items.
I believe-
There's no objection. Pardon?
I believe you're on item
Oh,
5.
we didn't have call for the public.
No, we don't have one. Just wanted to go
Item
through the
number
order.
6. Now,
Don't want to skip any fun.
did you have a objection to combining the consent agenda items?
A through C, please. I move.
I'll second. Fleedham.
Is there any discussion? Ms. Boggs, will you call for the vote?
Lane,
Aye.
Hart,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Fleedham,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye, Watkins,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Hobson.
Aye.
Motion carried. That brings up agenda item 7, personnel, and 7A is approval of the certified and classified requests.
Mr. Lamar, I'd like to combine A through D on personnel as one consent, one item,
That would be E.
A through D.
A through E, you mean?
Yes.
Is there an E?
E, yes, A through E. Thank you for correcting me.
Are there any objections to that? Hearing none, I'll call for the motion.
You gotta have a second.
Oh, we already have a second?
No.
That's,
I'll second. Boggs.
now, is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Boggs, will you call for the vote?
Lane.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Covington.
Aye.
Fleedem.
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Watkins.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
And Hobson.
Aye.
Motion carried. That brings up agenda item 8, information and discussion. And I believe Kevin Colbell is scheduled to speak.
I'm scheduled to speak on item B. Item A, however, would be Dr. Wilson.
Oh, it's Dr. Wilson, okay. Thank you.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, included in tonight's packet is the superintendent evaluation tool. Some of you who are new to the board haven't seen this document yet, this artifact yet. Those of you who have been on the board for a number of years have raised the issue that potentially the tool itself doesn't actually get to what you're wanting out of evaluating the superintendent. My evaluation isn't until November, but I wanted to give it to you ahead of time so you can begin looking at it, and then I'll bring it back for further discussion at subsequent meetings so that we can be in a position where you all feel comfortable either A, understanding the instrument, or B, adjusting the instrument to actually reflect what you're wanting the instrument to capture. So I'd be happy to answer any questions tonight, but it's really just the beginning of a conversation with you.
Are there any questions? Thank you. That brings us now to 8B, which is Kevin Colbell, I think.
That's correct. We have a policy on public participation in board meetings that pretty much limits participation to people who appear at the meeting in person because they've got to fill out a form and submit it. And I was just wondering if you would like a revision to that policy, if I work with Carlos to facilitate people who are watching this on live stream to make public comments. They could submit the form electronically ahead of time, and we could call them at the appropriate time to have a comment made. And if you're interested in that, and I will get with Carlos and figure out how to do that and revise the policy.
I think we ought to explore it.
Absolutely.
I like
I
it.
am.
I like
I
the
like
form.
it.
Well, I would like to see a proposal.
Okay, I will get a policy together and present it at the next meeting.
Thank you. That brings up agenda item 9, policy revisions, and I believe it's the second read. Is there a motion?
So what policy are we reading?
9A, I'm sorry, 9A.
But there's nothing in the book.
Oh. I thought we were adopting the
Revisions.
The ones we read
Yeah,
last month,
revisions.
last meeting, those
Right.
same ones?
Yes,
Yeah, the same ones from last.
this is just a second reading, right?
Yep. This is
Yeah,
just,
but we have to act upon that at this.
That's why I was wanting a motion. Do I have a motion to adopt the policies as presented?
also make a motion to adopt the policy revisions as they were read last meeting.
I'll
Thank
second.
you.
Boggs.
Now, is there any discussion? Hearing none? Oh,
I'm not sure what they are. They're not, I don't recall exactly what we talked about 2 weeks ago.
What's that?
What's the date today?
It's from the last meeting.
You'll see, as soon as you see it, you'll.
Oh, I very well might.
Refreshed.
Yeah, August 9th.
I have a good memory. It's short.
So,
yeah, I don't recall exactly what they were about.
I do believe that, and we have a hard copy here, I do believe they're attached to your board docs, if I'm correct, in your, so those of you that are accessing it
You got
online,
them there, don't you?
Right.
they're not
we
blank.
got, excuse
I
me,
think
I've
maybe
got,
we
I've
need
got
to-
BIB as the first one, right? Is that right?
I'm looking back through mine.
Board
We've got
mem- board-
DJ is one of them.
Board member
GCB.
development?
I can do a quick recap for all of you if you would like.
Oh, please.
The revisions to policy BIB, GCH, and IMB are related to the recently adopted ARS 41-1494 and 15.717.02, which prohibit the teaching of instructing training, orientation, or therapy that presents any form of blame or judgment on the basis of race, ethnicity, or sex. We're revising DIE to meet the new statutory requirements of ARS 5914, which requires this board to publicly accept all audits and compliance questionnaires by roll call vote. We're revising policy DJ. They've added a new section to 15342 that allows the governing board to provide food and beverages at school district events, including official school functions and trainings, which I assume includes board meetings. Policy GCB, GDB, and GDF are being revised because there's a new statutory requirement that we have to give each employee a statement annually about their total compensation package. IC is being updated with reference to the new statute that defines the school year and instruction time. IJ and IJJ are just adding the definition of textbook that includes digital content, and JLF adds a posting requirement related to suspected abuse and neglect of children, which requires all the buildings, campuses to post where students can find out how to report abuse. And that's all of them.
Thank you. I believe we had a motion and a second. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Boggs, will you call for the vote?
Lane.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Covington.
Aye.
Fleedem.
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Watkins.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Hobson.
Abstain.
Motion carried. That brings up 9B, Queen Creek Unified School District Transportation Waiver. Dr. Wilson?
Mr. President, members of the governing board, if you recall, the last meeting, I believe, the governing board denied Queen Creek's AM transportation request. Part of our policy, or part of the IGA, is that when a program or a waiver is denied, that the superintendent communicate to the sending district the denial, which I did. In response to that, there's been discussion with Queen Creek and ultimately communication provided by Queen Creek that may or may not explain a little bit more deeply some of the obstacles they've faced in transportation and some of what they've tried to accomplish in order to accommodate their transportation needs and issues, not only as it relates to EVIT, but across the whole of the district, their whole district. In addition to that, I took the opportunity to see if, in fact, we have Queen Creek students enrolled in our AM session. And we do, not nearly as many as we have enrolled in the PM session. But the fact that we do have some students enrolled here is somewhat of an indicator that Queen Creek is receptive to students coming in the morning, but not able to transport them for the reasons they've articulated before. Obviously, the new information may or may not make a difference in your understanding of the waiver request, but I felt it fair to Queen Creek and to you to bring that item back as a request again with the added information.
Mr. Wilson? Excuse me, Dr. Wilson, I better get that correct. Are the Queen Creek kids that are in the AM, are they attending classes at this moment?
Yes. Well, yes. They're enrolled here.
Not this moment, but, during
Yes.
the day, when they're in the AM.
At this
Yes.
point in time,
Yes, they are. And again, the number is not nearly in the AM what it is in the PM. And that's somewhat a function of the transportation issue. One of the concerns I had is that it was really more driven by making sure that students received 4 hours at the home school in order to capture the 1.0 ADM. And that doesn't appear to be the case, at least for the students that are here in the AM. So it lends itself more to the discussion of truly a transportation issue.
About how many students are there?
I want to say, and this is going to be off the top of my head, I want to say in the afternoon we have two,
Morning, AM.
60 maybe, something like that.
60, yes. 2 busfuls.
yeah, yes, absolutely.
So they're
40,
currently,
I mean,
they're currently transporting themselves at this moment?
yes,
So that means they already have the system worked out?
for them, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and clearly, I suspect there was more students that are eligible to come in the AM that can't transport themselves, and so therefore, whether they were able to schedule a PM session or not is something different. And I think, I think transportation is going to be an issue that we continue to have to work with our sending districts on. I think it's not only an issue in the district that we're talking about, but there are other districts I think that we're going to have to spend some time this fall and this spring really talking through the expectations so students can participate both AM and PM. But in defense of Queen Creek, if truly the issue is they can't find drivers and they've articulated what they've tried to do to capture drivers, that may or may not change your feelings about granting the waiver, the AM waiver.
They say they're renting buses and different drivers and lack of buses because of COVID. They haven't bought any.
Oh, every district's
motor
got those
coaches.
issues.
They what?
Every district has the
Every,
same
you know,
issue.
every,
It's
They,
not
they do.
unique. Every single one.
I think transportation is an issue for all districts. I do think that Queen Creek has a bit of a different issue. I think they're experiencing hypergrowth, in which many of our other partnering districts are experiencing decline in enrollment. So therefore, the need for transportation or the magnitude of transportation shifts a little bit. I think the distance of Queen Creek, some of their campuses to our main campus in particular, is larger than most other districts. The only other one who has that same distance, I think, is more Cave Creek. But I think all of our other partnering districts have a closer transportation route, so therefore it maximizes the ability potentially for them to turn a driver who can do an AM route and still get back in time to run a similar AM route for one of the other grade levels.
Yeah, but are they running a PM route?
They are.
How many kids are in the PM?
I want to say in the PM there's 240. I mean, this is just a guesstimate, right? I mean, it's not a small number. Could it be more? Absolutely. But it's not a small number. Not all of those students are being transported, I'm assuming, on the bus either. I mean, my guess is there's some PM students that are transporting themselves as well.
Now, that district is getting a significant amount of additional funding for rapid growth.
I'm sure.
For their ADM, a lot of extra money.
And that's gonna, we've talked about this before, and it's gonna be an item in a future agenda in terms of the growth of the CTED being in that section. And so, we foresee having numbers growing out there for the next 5 to 6 years in terms of what they're expecting in terms of growth. So it's not gonna be an issue that resolves itself today, for sure.
No, and are they denying their students the opportunity to participate with the EVIT? Something tells me that they probably are. If they have that many that are willing to transport themselves, there's probably at least 50% of that number that just flat can't do it. And is that fair? And at what point are these ones, some circumstance in their life, and they say they're halfway through the semester and they can't transport themselves all of a sudden? That's kind of an ugly scenario, and every other district we require to transport.
This,
With
I
the
have a
exception of
question.
Combs.
I have a question for you, Dr. Wilson. So for the students that are in the AM sessions that are not provided transportation, would they be offered a PM session, or would they be forced to change curriculum or disciplines or something like that in order to get transportation if they weren't provided it?
So can you say that again?
So the students that are in the AM curriculum here, if the district isn't providing transportation for them, would they be offered the same curriculum in an afternoon session so they could have provided transportation?
So the short answer to that is yes. If there were students in the AM that were in automotive, for example, and for whatever reason they wanted to flip to the PM so they could get transportation, we could find them some space in the automotive program. I think in defense of the students from Queen Creek, I think they in the AM session, I think they prefer to come in the AM, just because the numbers are smaller. And there's, when we look at our campus enrollment on the main campus, it's over 3,000, and 2,000 plus is in the PM, 1,000 is in the AM. So I think that AM students at Queen Creek would prefer to stay AM. But to answer your question, if need be, we could flip them to the PM and they would have the same course offering opportunity that they have in the AM.
Are most of their students going to the Power campus?
I think there's a good number of students going to the Power Campus, and this again will lean into the conversation that we'll have a couple weeks down the road. There are certain programs, obviously, that aren't offered at the Power Campus, and so, we have a decent number of students in our automotive program that come from Quinn Creek, that our welding program that come from Quinn Creek. We have HVAC students, so there's a lot of our industrial trades programs that aren't offered out at the Power Road campus, and so this is the only place that they can come to. So when you talk about our cosmetology, our vet assistant, our engineering, yes, the Quinn Creek students are heavily enrolled in those programs, but the programs we don't offer there, they come here for.
Thank you.
Dr. Wilson, I'm reading here that Queen Creek Unified School District is mentioning that they have limited capital and bond funds. Is that correct? They don't have the capital to run their school?
So I'm not their, obviously, I'm not their CFO. I think anytime you have a district that is experiencing growth, to Mr. Lane's point, you're getting additional revenue coming in, but at the same time, you're having a hard time if you don't have bonds that have been sold to the community in order to capture and build the new facilities needed to enroll the growing enrollment, right? And according to the Queen Creek superintendent, they're enrolling and growing at about 1,000 students a year, which is about a school a year. And so that may very well be that the stress on their bond and capital is a reflection of their growth and their ability to have the revenue and resources to build space for new students versus having the revenue to purchase additional bus or whatever they may want to do outside with that capital funding.
Thank you.
So one last question from me, sorry, is this a one semester waiver, or would this be good for the entire year? Could we
So-
give them a break for just the fall and give them a chance to figure it out for the spring?
So you could do whatever you all have the latitude to make a decision however you see fit. I would suggest that you do it for the year though. And the reason for that is in fairness to the student. That if I'm a student in Quinn Creek already, my schedule's been set. And so the ability to change my schedule at semester time and flip my core classes to the PM and do my EVIT in the AM may be more problematic than currently what exists. To me, I think, my opinion is the question now is their schedule is set, and I don't know that they're going to do much different to change their master schedule. I think, though, in my opinion, the long-term goal is that what are we going to expect out of our partner districts in relationship to transportation? I think the governing board, I think, has made a very bold statement to say that transportation is a requirement and therefore part of the IGAs. If you don't provide it, we're going to deny it, which means that we then get into this deeper conversation with Quinn Creek or whichever city district we're partnering with. That message is a message that has been sent. I don't know necessarily what else will change this year by continuing to deny it, because their master schedule is set. They're not going to change that.
Not change that.
So I have one more other question. So these students that are in the AM, right, if they switch to the PM, what are the chances of the classes that they're scheduled for in AM, those classes not having any room in the PM, and thusly, or they're so overcrowded that the student actually gets a lesser opportunity in those classes to excel simply because it's an overcrowded situation?
So I think the latter part of your question is more of a concern. Denying the waiver doesn't preclude the AM students from still attending in the morning. They're just going to be on their own to transport, which is what they're doing right now. I think moving any student to the PM creates a potential problem of the student having a lesser opportunity just because the numbers are so much greater in the PM. I think part of what we probably want to think through are what are some things that we can do as an organization to help change that a little bit, right? If we could have a more balanced AM and PM session, that means that all students would have a greater opportunity to learn. If the issue that our PM is so large because districts are wanting to capture a 1.0 ADM, that's my opinion, a bigger concern and issue than districts not having the revenue, the funding, the resources to be able to transport. I think given time, we can work with districts to look for solutions to offset that second one. But if it's the first one, that's a challenge that's is gonna get really interesting.
Well, my recollection is from earlier that the issue wasn't the actual buses, it was drivers. And drivers, you can't pay drivers from bond funds and capital funds. That
Yeah.
comes out of M&O. So now they've changed their story, so they don't have buses. So what is it?
So
Are they adjusting their circumstance to try to, what's the real story here? Last time they came, they stated that they had buses but no drivers.
And yes, and that was the communication that was given to me.
Now they're throwing out this bond fund and capital fund, but you don't do bus drivers through that. That's an M&O expense. It's
Correct.
illegal to use bond funds and capital funds for M&O.
So I'm just gonna make an assumption, could be incorrect, it's just my assumption. That's what was communicated to me the first go at it. And I believe that was what the belief was on the part of the superintendent. I don't know that they dug deeper, quite honestly. I think that historically, these have just been approved. And I compliment you as a governing board for really digging a bit deeper and begin to make decisions that are ultimately gonna allow us to kind of move the needle towards balancing some of this. So my assumption partly is that what was communicated to me and I communicated to you was partly correct, and you see that even in their backup tonight. But the other part wasn't completely understood, simply because I don't think there was ever real consideration given that it would be denied, simply because I don't know that the governing board has kind of leaned into those decisions. And I think it's good that you're leaning into those decisions, but I think it might have surprised some that was the position the governing board took.
What is your recommendation?
So my recommendation is a two-part recommendation. My first part is that you approve the AM waiver for this year. And the reason for that is because I do think that there are some legitimate concerns that Queen Creek raises. I also think it's a bit problematic for us to armchair. I think it's a bit problematic for me to armchair quarterback whether they're doing things the right way or the wrong way. I don't think that's good practice or good business. I think the fact that you denied it the first time is sending a message that as we move forward, there's got to be some deeper discussions as it relates to transportation in the next IGA. There's got to be mechanisms in the IGA that allows us to navigate this, because as it stands right now, you deny the waiver and they've got their master schedule set and nothing really changes. And so we go down the road of playing this game. So what are some of the mechanisms that need to be in place in order for us to really hold accountable whether or not the district is providing the transportation? I think also by denying it the first time, you're leaning into a much deeper discussion about other areas within the aspect of the IGA, because this isn't the only area, right? And this isn't the only district. And I know that when we start talking about having students have to get on the bus at 6 o'clock in the morning to get down here, and the reason why they had to get up on the bus at 6 o'clock in the morning is because they have to get back to their homeschool in time to get enough credits earned so they could go ahead and take EVIT. Well, that kind of opens the door for a discussion of why can't we have more embedded credits in our classes so that there are students that are starting their ninth grade journey can begin saying, I'm not going to take PE as a ninth grader, I'm going to take, I'm making it up, U.S. Arizona History as a ninth grader because I'm going to take PE when I go to EVIT because I want to be in their Fire Science Academy, and that we can crosswalk those standards. And so to me, what you all have done initially is to kind of plant the flag in the ground that says, we want there to be deeper discussions about things that actually matter so more kids can be here. I think denying it again doesn't make the flag deeper. I think it makes the flag less attainable to discuss in our negotiations. That was a lot of words.
When is the Queen Creek IGA up for renewal?
All of them are up for renewal this year. And that's part of the reason why I'm appreciative.
Up for take effect in the next fiscal year?
Correct. Yeah, so we're in the third of the three this year with all of them. And that was part of the reason why I complimented you in taking the stand that you're taking, because I do think that there needs to be some realization that, with these IGAs, we are obligated to do our part, but they're obligated to do theirs as well. And I think this creates a door for us, a window for us to have, like I said, deeper discussions. But, one of the things that Kevin and I need is more discussion with you all about what are some of the non-negotiables in the IGA, right? Well, if transporting AM is a non-negotiable, then what are the ramifications of that? Currently, the IGA says we get a mediator. So what? So my point is there needs to be other thoughtfulness in the IGA.
Well, we have to go carefully too, because the other districts are watching what's going on. And so what's to say, well, we don't have just a whole lineup of all these surrounding districts line up and say, well, you did it for them, you should do it for us, and this and that. And,
Well, that-
you know, you
that's-
got J.O. Combs and
I mean, I think that's a fair
Queen
concern.
Creek and
I think
Paradise Valley.
Well, it can't be
and-
Paradise Valley, but I think that's a
Not I
fair,
mean Fountain Hills,
Yeah.
that's what I meant to say. but-
I think that's a fair concern. I guess the point I hold to, and maybe it's because I'm still young at heart and naive, the point I hold to is that for the most part, people are good. And I don't know that necessarily every single one of those districts is gonna wanna try to pull the wool over our eyes. If we though see that that is the case, you all have the ability on the front end to say no, right? And that's always gonna be your option. The waiver that you agree to isn't a lifelong waiver. All the other districts have had the waivers accepted. So, I mean, don't need the waivers. So this is really the last one to end this IGA, and as we move into the next IGA, then some parameters around those need to be different that we can hold ourselves accountable to and hold them accountable to as well.
I got Kevin.
Dr. Wilson,
Yes, sir.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, Dr. Wilson, I have a concern about and we've kind of passed over those kids in the morning who want to come here but don't have access to mom's pickup truck or dad's, I don't know, vehicle to get to either one of the campuses, who are just kind of left out. Let's say they have to be there in the afternoon at their local school to get necessary credits. And by excluding the morning opportunity, there's a class of kids who are just not going to have the opportunity to come to EVIT. And I guess I'm a little annoyed that the school district is not doing its job. But I'm also convinced by, I guess, your argument that the schedules are set. There's not much that's going to happen between now and the renegotiation of the IGAs. But I think the message that's been sent is good, but we ought to be maybe even more affirmative about making it very clear that we're unhappy with this, because kids who don't have other resources, who have no other way of getting to an EVIT campus, are going to be left out.
So I think that's a fair concern. I guess from my perspective, and you don't know unless you parse every single student out, my guess is that students that wanted to attend in the afternoon are eligible or able to attend via Queen Creek and their transportation. To me, the challenge with that becomes if they were also interested in participating in the AM, they may still be getting the EVIT experience in the PM, but it's probably a different experience because the class sizes are so much larger. So I don't know that it's fair to say they're not being able to have the experience. I'm sure some are, but I think it's even more correct or more accurate to say that the experience they're getting in the PM may not be the same as what they would have gotten in the AM had they been able to get transported, and that was the student's first request to begin with.
Okay.
Well, if you hadn't told me that schedule was already set, I'd be more critical, I guess. But I'm gonna support this because of your recommendation, and because the schedules are set, but probably not the next year.
Okay. Kevin, are you ready for the battle on the IGA?
Pardon?
You ready for the battle on the IGA?
We are ready. I've already got a list of like 6 things we need to renegotiate.
So do we need to have a motion, or we?
Can I just say one more thing to that? I think one of the things, and this is where I'm going to compliment Kevin, and I don't do this very often, but I'm going to do it right now. I think he is incredibly attuned to some of the challenges that we're facing, and I think he will look for creative solutions that ultimately produce a win-win. I'm not that way, so I'm very grateful that he's going to be part of that.
I'm very thankful.
I am very thankful.
Yes.
We are too.
Do we have a motion?
I'll move that we approve item 9B, the Queen Creek AM transportation waiver for the duration of the current IGA.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Boggs, will you call for the vote?
Lane.
Aye.
Hart.
Aye.
Covington.
Aye.
Fleedem.
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Watkins.
Aye.
Johnson.
Aye.
Hobson.
Aye.
Motion carried. That brings us to 9C, architectural firm for the main and power campuses. Dr. Wilson.
Mr. President, members of the governing board, part of what we brought to you several months ago now was the beginnings of a discussion that would allow us to renovate this existing facility, the main campus facility. You know, our maintenance crew, our custodians, our grounds have done an amazing job over the past 20-plus years maintaining this facility. But outside of that, there really hasn't been a lot done to this campus. And so, you know, our goal is to remodel some of the space, but also more than that, to do some upgrades and some upkeep that just need to be done to protect the taxpayer investment. So that is on the main campus. And we've also talked previously about the idea of going back out to power and doing a third building sooner rather than later around the industrial trades. Back to some of the questions about welding and automotive and things, you know, how can we better meet the needs of our communities? So what we did is we did an RFQ, request for qualifications for architects to be responsible for helping us work through not only the main campus remodel, but also, if the governing board chooses to, the third building expansion out at Power Road. We took the RFQ and we pulled a committee together. The committee is, as indicated in your board backup, was Mr. Fisher, Mr. Cosaro, Ms. Folger, and Ms. Ott, all who reviewed the packets. And the recommendation from the committee is to go with SPS Plus Architects. They're the ones that are currently working on the power expansion, and they're the ones who also have helped us initially doing the space analysis on this campus. If you'll remember, before we went down the road of expanding out of power, we were first asked to do a space analysis on this campus, and so they did the space analysis for us. So they've already got a bit of that work that's done in terms of understanding the footprint of this campus, as well as obviously understanding the footprint of the power campus, because they're part of that current expansion.
Okay.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
I will move that we award the contract for architectural services as recommended by our selection committee to SPS Plus Architects.
I'll second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Boggs, will you call for the vote?
Lane,
Aye.
Hart,
Aye.
Covington,
Aye.
Leadham,
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Watkins,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Hobson.
Aye.
Motion carried. That brings us to agenda item 10, staff report. Dr. Wilson?
Boy, I'm saying a lot of words to you guys tonight. I feel bad. Quickly, so we're still in the process of working with Westmac in relationship to the ASBA discussion. As you may be aware, their governing board at their last meeting voted to stay with ASBA, at least for the next year. But their superintendent did reach back to me and indicate that there is some desire on the part of their governing board to still move forward with kind of a joint meeting or joint discussion between EVIT, Westmac, and ASBA. So I'll reach back out to Mr. Donovan next week or this week and see if we can't begin getting some agenda items. I think one of the challenges that we're going to have is what is it that we really want to accomplish? What's really the topic of the conversation? So you may be thinking of that, and if you have some thoughts that you want to share with me, please don't hesitate to reach back to me, and I'll put those down so we can try to flush some of those topics out, and I'll bring those back to you before we schedule the meeting. As a reminder, last week was the third week of the school year. I can't believe that we're now in week 4. I believe at the end of this week or next week, we have progress reports due. I mean, think about how fast time goes. Progress reports are going to be due. So I want to give a ton of credit to our facilities, maintenance, grounds, Marty, Mark, Lee. The past couple weeks have just been really difficult with the rain and it was just they showed up every single day and made sure that we had air, lights, and the campus was ready for our students. So very much appreciate that. As a reminder, those of you who are interested and scheduled to attend the East Valley School Board Consortium meeting, that's next Monday at 6 o'clock I believe it's at the Mesa boardroom. And Tammy will get that information back out to you, but it's a dinner. They're actually really neat meetings. So I look forward to seeing those of you on the 30th. And unless you have questions for me, that's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you because I finished, and thank you because I said good words.
All the above.
Said you're finished. Information was good.
That brings us to agenda item 11A, calendar. Are there any agenda items for the meeting coming up September 13 from board members?
I'll ask Dr. Wilson, will Wes Meck be ready to do it when
No.
it's, okay.
Not by then. But what I will try to do is bring back to you some topics to just some draft topics for us to discuss, right? Because my goal would be to by the end of September to have it solidified what the conversation is gonna be. Then we'll work with ASBA and Westmac to have a joint meeting sometime first part of October is kind of where I'm trending towards.
Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
will the ASBA letter that just got circulated, will that be on the agenda on our next meeting?
You'll have to, I'm sorry, Mr. Hobson, the ASBA.
There was a letter that Tammy forwarded. The ASBA wants to change the way a bit to provide additional representation from Native Americans and Latinos on its board. It just got circulated.
It certainly can be. Like I said, in talking with Mr. Donovan from Westmac, I think one of the challenges is making sure that there's kind of a unified topics to discuss with ASBA. And so we can have on the agenda, our agenda, if we want to address that letter. I guess what I'm hoping for is that if you guys have interest, that you're wanting that discussion to be with ASBA, forward those to me, then I'll work with Mr. Donovan to see, kind of where there's some commonality so that we can start kind of formulating what that agenda will look like when we do meet with ASBA, and that's kind of a focused agenda, not just a shotgun approach to every conversation. But we certainly can have the ASBA letter that was just circulated on our agenda if you'd like.
Sure. I think it's
Yes.
a somewhat different letter. It just asks for additional representation for, I think, one additional person, as it looks like, so that rather than rotating every 2 years between an Hispanic person and a Native American person, they want to have two seats, so one additional seat that will always be Hispanic education focused and Native American focused. It looks like that's what
That's
I understood
correct.
too.
That's right.
Thank you. That brings us to adjournment. Do I have a motion?
Also move?
I'll second.
Was that a second?
Yeah, second,
Yes.
Hart seconds.
Yeah, I assume will there be any discussion? Ms. Boggs, will you call for a vote?
Lane?
Aye.
Hart?
Aye.
Covington?
Aye.
Freedom?
Aye.
Boggs is an aye. Watkins?
Aye.
Johnson?
Aye.
Hobson?
Aye.
Motion carried. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you all very much. Mr. Johnson looks good. I just want to get it on the record. Mr. Johnson's looking good out there. Look at him.